Italians who first came out to scout the area, and I'd like to mention them by name. Nini Bonifacio, Antioga McKetty, Victor Violo, and Mary Monta, and all the other committee members and others who rode in the cavalcade. Thank you. My name's Les Violo. I've had the honor and privilege of being selected by my peers from the 5HV Club and community at large as chairman of the Centennial Planning Committee. So I will be your MC for this portion of the opening ceremony segment. We'll try and be as brief as possible. However, 100 years of history is important and a once-in-a-lifetime milestone. So certain acknowledgements and tributes will have to be made. We are here today to celebrate 100 years of history of the sister communities of Venice and Hylo, which began with the arrival of Italian immigrant homesteaders to the region in 1914. The teams and wagons that are here today signify the arrival of these people by similar conveyances from an overland trek from Collington through the Sandhills. At the time, Collington was the end of rail, some 80 miles north of Edmonton. Hylo Venice was the second Italian agricultural colony in Alberta after Naples, which is located near Barhead. I am proud to say that both my ancestors from the paternal and maternal side have come from this group of Italian settlers. While we acknowledge the Italians as starting it all, we are not only celebrating this event, we are celebrating 100 years of history. As indicated by all the various national flags behind me, many other ethnic groups were soon to follow in the 1920s, the 30s, and so on. Besides Italy, which we focus on today's event, we have flags from Ukraine, Sweden, France, Germany, Switzerland. Of course, the Union Jack of Great Britain, which is also Canada's flag at the time of settlement. We also have Lithuania, Poland, Austria, Norway, the Czech Republic, Armenia, as well as the individual flags from representing Scotland, Ireland, Russia, and even the Stars and Stripes from the USA. We are here today united under the national maple leaf flag of Canada in the province of Alberta. For the first Italians who came here, life was very harsh and unforgiving, particularly when faced with the brutal winters, which they were not used to. If we could imagine these people huddled in primitive shacks, staying close to fires, with provisions running low. Many did not remain, but the more resilient ones did, slowly building farms and working on the railroad or logging camps. While the hamlets of Venice and Hylo were hubs of activity in bygone years, we were not destined to become metropolises. Nevertheless, we descendants remain proud of the role our ancestors played in the development of Alberta and Canada. In observing the hard work and enthusiasm of the people of this community who have worked on this centennial project, regardless of their ethnic backgrounds, honoring the arrival of the first group, the Italians, as founders of our communities, has made me very proud of you all. This, for me, is truly rewarding. I need to particularly thank certain groups and individuals who have been the troops in the trenches in the planning and execution of these celebrations, some 2 years or so in the making. First of all, the 5HV Club, our local seniors organization. I believe this will go down in the annals of history as perhaps your finest hour. Without your backing and sponsorship, none of this could have gotten started. But of course, groups are made up of individuals. Janet Miardi, who's president. Cheryl Verboom, Cecile Kirkbride, Wilfred and Marge McAwachi, Lori Zalewski, who did so much to gather information and get it out to the public, and many others who have assisted in too numerous to mention without leaving someone out. You all know who you are.
You're all doing BP.
I need to acknowledge Brian Campola, whose tireless efforts to project like this are remarkable. I also have to thank two representatives from Lac-La-Biche County who sat on our committee, Anita Polterick and Colette Bergen. Your knowledge, advice, and work were invaluable to us. I also have to acknowledge Mark Rhoda, a local playwright, musician, among other talents. When we began planning this event, we were exploring various ideas. One of these ideas was a play depicting the life of the early Italians, as well as later events in the community. We asked Mark if he could create such a play. We did not just want to portray life at the time simply as being hard and full of drudgery, which it was. We also wanted to portray the lighter side of life with humor, which also took place. We grew up with many such stories, not intended to be humorous, but ended up being as such. Mark created this play. Now, due to too many technical difficulties as well as scheduling it in at this time, it did not allow us to bring it to production, but we hope it can happen in the future. We do want to thank him for his work. I also want to thank the Hylo Venice Ag Society, Shauna, Ken, and others for all your help and support. A huge thank you to the management and staff of Lac-La-Biche County for all the support you have given. We could not have done this without you. And a big thank you to all our sponsors, of which I believe there's a list around your summer, for all the generous contributions. I would like to acknowledge Sergeant Henry Van Dorlen of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police for being with us today. Your presence to events such as this reminds us of why we can enjoy privileges, freedom, and security, as he also depicted these characteristics to our first settlers. Finally, one last acknowledgement. We had a lady in the community who was working with us on committee planning this event. She was involved at the community level with many projects since coming to Hylo, sometime in the 80s. Served with the Ag Society and the 5-HV Club. She unfortunately was unable to see this through. I am speaking of Thelma Peets. We would like to thank her daughter-in-law Laura, who has filled in and been a big help. I would now like to move on with the opening ceremonies. We had a special plaque made up to be mounted on the cairn right here outside the 5-HV Club as a permanent fixture, commemorating the Italians who were the founders and other historical backgrounds. Unfortunately, due to certain technical difficulties, the cairn has not been completed. We will nevertheless unveil the plaque, which will be mounted permanently once the structure is complete. I'd like to ask Janet to please unveil the plaque, President of the 5-HV Club. I would now like to introduce our special guests who are with us today to say a few words concerning this event. I unfortunately cannot introduce who was to be our first guest, because due to perhaps other technical difficulties, he was unable to show. It was to be an MP from a neighboring constituency, as we presently do not have one, to represent the Government of Canada. So I guess we'll move on to our next guest, who is our MLA in the Alberta Legislature, Mr. Shane Saskill. Please come up.
Well, thank you, everyone. Of course, events like this can't happen without volunteers, so please join me in thanking all the volunteers, in particular, Mr. Biolo. Well, it's an absolute honor to be here to celebrate with you today. I've visited many places in this constituency as your MLA, and the communities of Hylo and Venice are always the ones that stand out in my mind as a great place to be. I've enjoyed attending the Venice Picnic, which has the best pasta around the area. I've looked forward to attending the Hylo Parade since 2010. I've always felt like a part of this community and have been included in everything, including the last centennial celebration in 2012, recognizing the McKetty family for being in Canada for over 100 years. The people here are hardworking, genuine, and welcoming. I've been